Okay, so I'm in Rochester, New York, and we're going to take a look at lesson number 340 for Workbook of A Course in Miracles. And I love the last part of this is in perfect alignment with every experience I've ever had of salvation, as is the first part of it. Um, in line with the way I've come to know that each one of us can live in order to be happy by utilizing a forgiving mind, in a sense. There's Jesus in A Course in Miracles. He doesn't talk about a forgiven mind. He talks about a forgiving mind, a mind that's open and is here forgiving, rather than an ego that is closed to any sort of change whatsoever that would lead to a um, fundamentally new understanding. Um, of course, the ego, and we could look at this, the ego is what keeps your mind closed to a fundamental new understanding that would allow today's lesson to be true for you in your daily practice, because the ego is a getting mechanism in order to continue in its pursuit of keeping you distracted by its need to get. It sets up situations, because remember, you must get the result of your own thinking. That was one of the lessons that we've done recently, and a theme throughout the course that is repeated over and over again and is woven in and out of all these lessons so as to bring us back to the fundamentals with a new type of application. When we'll be suffering, it's a different type of application. It's a freedom from the human condition in the recognition that we must get the result of our own thinking, and not even God can interfere. God has provided an intercessor in the Holy Spirit that doesn't interfere except totally, but only at your request. Ask and you shall receive. Only when you've asked are you able to receive the grace of God through the Holy Spirit. And once you do, you begin to understand why you would request it more and more, and begin to utilize it in order to allow this lesson to become true to you each and every day, because you only have one day. The past, what we're forgiving is all our misconceptions of who we are, based on all of our past concepts and perceptions, and understandings, including those we have about time and space, including what we have about A Course in Miracles. Each minute we are renewed. And that's what this is speaking of, a way to live in a constantly renewing presence. Because we've learned to utilize a forgiving mind, having been taught forgiveness by Master Jesus himself, learning the technique and having it reinforced heavily by the experiences that we are having, we come to this lesson with a forgiving mind. So today I can be free of suffering. Father, I thank you for today. And all we have is this one day. The past is always gone, and the future is being written now. And if you're a student of Abraham Hicks, you heard of the vortex. The the way we enter into of the vortex provided to us for our salvation, continued resurrection, and fulfillment of our function, is to allow our minds to be so free of the past that while we can utilize the form association that has been familiar to us in the past, we freed ourselves of the meaning that it was given in the past when we thought we were separate, based on experiences we have in the constantly renewing present, in the recognition of our unity consciousness with all of our brothers, as well as the unbroken connection, unbroken chain of love and communication that is always with us from our source. This day is holy. Each day is holy. This lesson is reminiscent of the 12-step program, where we're being taught to live one day at a time. Jesus taught the same thing 2,000 years ago, and I'm never sure of the exact phrase, but it's much too, it means much the same as, you know, let today be sufficient unto itself. You're given one day. You can let the past haunt you, but in truth, you're given one day. Let this day be sufficient unto itself. Meet the day with the responsibility that you have taken in your new forgiving mind, and allow everything to become part of the purification process that the vortex provides for us as we live timelessly in space and time, and begin to glimpse and understand the nature of our true infinite self. This day is holy, for today your son will be redeemed. I am redeemed each and every day. I remember and I communicate with the source of my redemption, the source of my salvation, in the recognition that I am here to give that salvation and to share the good news of salvation with all my brothers, which is what the second part of this lesson speaks of. For he will hear your voice directing him to find Christ's vision through forgiveness and be free forever from all suffering. And in truth, we are free forever from all suffering, because suffering can touch us not in the reality within which we were created, it being the totality of love, outside of which is nothing, and included within which is everything whole and perfect. And it's an expanding universe in that sense, where previously there was nothing. Now the expanse of love in our joining with our brothers begins to be made manifest. The human mind has a very, very hard time understanding nothing, because the human mind is conceptually based in a way that utilizes comparisons. And if there's a comparison to nothing, then the nothing becomes equally as much of a something as the something that you are comparing it to. And the Course is based on the fundamental principles that opposites in totality cannot exist. Okay? Thanks for today, my Father. I was born into this world but to achieve this day. Yes. I don't know how to teach the experience that comes along with having a forgiven mind, having a mind that has experienced forgiveness and therefore knows it has been forgiven and can live in the constancy of being here forgiving. I don't know how, in a sense, to talk about that, but in the best way is the 12-step program recognition that I am only given today. I am here today. The past is gone. There is no such thing as a future. If there is, the future will be exactly as this day is, if I allow this day to be lived in the now, and not in the now. And I hear Eckhart Tolle, who has a sense of the now, but Eckhart Tolle's now is filled with concentration and the need to, the need to effort, okay? The living in the now, and I would rather use the word timelessness, living in the timelessness that is afforded to each and every one of us through the practice of forgiveness and having a forgiving mind, okay? Living in that timelessness is no effort whatsoever, because you freed your mind from all that we thought the world was, based on the ego's need for turmoil, conflict, and effort. It's much like having recognized that we've healed the original sin that is spoken of in the Bible, where everything that man does he will do in pain, suffering, and turmoil, including childbirth, and recognizing that in our new healed mind, everything that we're doing is in joy because it's all associated with love through the practice of forgiveness, which leads us home. There's no sacrifice in it whatsoever, because there is nothing to sacrifice in the now. Everything is given to us, and the Holy Spirit constantly restores to us all that we need to fulfill our function when we accept our role in the plan, by allowing our mind to undergo the experiences that demonstrate to us and the universe that we are actually in a harmony and alignment that is leading us back to a natural condition of being whole and perfect, where the universal recognition of our eternal nature is within us and within all of our thinking. The infinite power that we share from our creation by God is in all of our thinking, and therefore our thoughts don't end in death, end with loss, end at all. There's no termination in that sense. It's an ongoing completion in an ever-present, timeless moment, wherein which each moment is free from the past, so that the future can be free from our need to live as we previously did, and experience the joy of God in the communication that we share with Him. Be glad today. Be glad. There is no room for anything but joy and thanks for today. Yes, in a forgiving mind, there is no room for anything but joy, because the conversion of its own unforgiveness is the recognition of the joy of its creation. Okay? Our Father has redeemed His Son this day. Yes. And each day we live in the recognition of the timeless nature of what's taking place within us and therefore around us, where we're no longer locked in and limited by, and I wish I could teach this and explain it the right way, any definitions, be they of limitation or definitions of unlimited, or definitions that would seem to indicate an unlimited nature, still based on the ideas of limitation that could establish an alternative in which they're not true. None of this is true in any regard, and the totality of freedom that is beyond any limitation or lack of limitation within the world of space and time bears no resemblance to the thinking that seems to take place while we correct ourselves through the process of forgiveness. Not one who will remain in fear, and none the Father will not gather to Himself, awake in heaven in the heart of love. This dream was over a long, long time ago. In fact, once it was over, it had never been dreamed whatsoever, and we're all safely at home, dreaming, revisiting what went on with the new forgiving mind, rather than the retentive mind of the ego in order to hold on things, thinking it can satisfy some God that it wants to take its toll even unto death and beyond. Okay, I can be free of suffering today because I'm eternal, perfect, whole, innocent, and within that there is no room for suffering. And time gives way to timelessness in our new recognition of our eternal nature and the infinite love that is our being.